Welcome back. And now we have two experts joining us, SP Tulsian of sptulsian.com and Sandeep Shenoy of Pioneer Invest Corp. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Tulsian, it looks like both the global environment and the domestic exit polls will give the market a gap down opening. Is there anything you would look to buy in this gap down?
See, Lata, you always get a opportunity in the adversity situation, and obviously the 2-3 things, the themes which seems to be playing out maybe for the next couple of days. I'm just taking a very near-term view because ultimately people will be waiting to see the outcome of the results tomorrow of the state elections. But IT and pharma, and secondly is in respect to the rural spending stocks. Whether you can include the FMCG or maybe the fertilizer stocks or maybe the agricultural pump or maybe fertilizer kind of stocks. They are seem to be the theme playing out because my market will probably be factoring in that if the government has to really put the reform process forward or have to build their strong position for the 2019 elections, the focus has to be on increasing the purchasing power of the rural income of the rural India. And mainly, especially for the agriculture, and we have seen the harvesting of the Kharif got over, Rabi season has just started, so this is probably the right time. And mind it, couple of years back, exactly at the same time, you have seen the demonetization, which has been instrumental partly for the giving a jerk to the rural income. So probably that will give a good lift and maybe complex fertilizer. I'm not too positive on the urea makers, but maybe complex fertilizer, water pump, or maybe the FMCG kind of things, because even the Kharif harvesting can be given good prices to the farmers, those who have just got the harvesting done and, waiting for the better realization. So this could be the theme, IT, pharma and agri-related or maybe the rural focused stocks to be looked into.
Okay, interesting. IT, pharma and some agri stocks. We have Sandeep Shenoy who also joins in. Sandeep, hi, good morning. The pocket that got hit very hard last week was the auto space. I mean, stocks like M&M, Tata Motors, Eicher were all down about 5 to 10%. Would you use this as an opportunity to buy any of the names?
Well, I think if you see the numbers, you really wonder how they managed to post these numbers because grassroots data which was coming and the feelers which were coming were quite adverse. But it's commendable that they have done it. But I think the market is not willing to give them the benefit of doubt. And that's why these stocks are under pressure. And they're going to remain at least for another month or so. So I guess if you are going to be a longer term investor, you could get a better opportunity in the next 3 to 4 weeks. But the turbulence of this sector is not going to abate as yet.
Okay. Well, just a second then before we come with follow-up questions, because the markets are about to give us the early ticks.
Big weakness in rupees, Lata. Almost 0.75% gone straight away in the currency market. I think if you see the NSE futures on the...
71.35 is what I have on the spot rupee.
Yes.
So that will be about 55 paise more expensive dollar. We will have to factor that in when we look at, 71.34. So when we look at either IT stocks or at bank stocks definitely will take this a little negatively because you've got crude as well as rupee. So there'll be a little bit of shaving off of yields. We will have to wait and see because yields also have a positive impact coming from the global fall in yields. But the rupee is at its lowest level since November 20th, 71.34. Now we are seeing some red on the Nifty as well. It's down about 120. 10,570, but I mean still dilly-dallying, so let's wait for it to settle down a bit.
Yes, in fact, just a couple of pockets perhaps, because of the way crude has spiked up, aviation stocks are under a lot of pressure. So Jet Airways is down in the red. You have NBFC stocks, DHFL is down 10% and it has Indiabulls Housing for company. It may not translate into a 10% cut, but because of stricter norms for NBFCs, there could be some pressure. Look at Indiabulls Housing.
I think we mustn't take that story too much to heart. I don't think any regulator is going to push these kinds of rules at this juncture. These are all incremental rules over a very long time. Now, the former CEA even called for an asset quality review of NBFCs. This stock has been doing the rounds for a long time. But will you go and do it at such a fragile juncture? I don't think. I think these are all in the pipeline, maybe 6 months down the line. So I think this is more because the market itself is jittery and they're pulling down long positions.
For whatever reasons, Adani stocks are down. Adani Power is down 8.5%. Adani Enterprises is down quite a bit now.
Adani Power did see a lot of vociferous consumer complaints, and therefore...
Yeah, but Adani Enterprise is also down about 8%. Now, there's obviously a one-to-one correlation that people make between
Yes,
the
of course,
politics and Adani Group stocks, that plays out always. So that's why these stocks are opening lower. NCC has broken down over the last few days, so that stock is down almost about 6%. Mr. Tulsian, good morning. I wanted your thoughts on NCC. What do you think is going wrong? It's been just one-way downward journey for the stock.
See, it's difficult to take that call, maybe because people are thinking that the EPC contracts are seen to be coming down, and, maybe because of the rising cement prices and all sort of things are putting pressure. But I don't think that can be the reasonable explanations, for the fall. Maybe something should be seen, which is not aware or which is not to the knowledge of the market, or maybe to us and then more to the market.
All right. Well, the PSU banks, actually all the usual suspects, the vulnerable names are under pressure because the market is down. So infrastructure, PSU banks, United Bank of India, IOB, UCO Bank, that whole lot is under quite a bit of pressure this morning. And Punj Lloyd as well is down almost about 10% or so.
Okay, just the 7.17, the 10-year paper is opening at 7.5. On Friday, it had closed at 7.46. So it's just registering some of the impact of higher crude prices and rupee, perhaps, weaker rupee.
Okay. In fact, on
Sandeep,
the subject of weaker rupee, Sandeep, any IT stocks that continue to top your list now, the big gainers of the year?
I think the investor interest will vector onto the top two players at the current juncture, and maybe some event-specific stories could be there in the second rung. But I guess right now the second rung stocks for a longer-term investor make sense because they have also passed through a very challenging phase. They have managed to reinvent themselves, and scale benefits, of course, on a much lower quantum is also accruing to them. So I guess that is where investor interest will be lying, and that's where we could see some kind of uptrend really building up.
Okay, but Sandeep, assuming that the exit polls are kind of the final result, where will you hide up until the final elections, the 2019 polls? Would it be FMCG? Would you not buy at all? What would would cash be your position?
In a torrential rain, Lata, whatsoever you do, you are going to get wet. So if the 3-0 adversity comes, I think we are going to have a very tough time from here to May. So there could be a lot of posturing, there could be multiple changes on the policy front. But yes, you could get some good options there, but that wouldn't be the time to go safe or flight to safety, what the FMCG or IT could be. So risk players, definitely, because India as a country is not going to stop. But yes, there could be carnage in the mid caps, and you could get beautiful opportunities in the mid caps from here to May. So assuming that 3-0 means electoral mandate comes adverse to the ruling dispensation. So I guess you have to view it from that point.
Okay, well, a couple of more stocks. Yeah, you also have Sun Pharma. Just keep an eye out on that. More pressure seen over there. It's back to 400 now. Remember, at the peak of, I think, September, it was closer to 700. So that's the kind of deterioration you've seen in Sun Pharma. But more stocks on our radar in a bit. Before that, we have Manisha Gupta to give us a roundup of all the action in the commodity space. The big talking point, Manisha, is, of course, the spike in crude.
Oh, well, yes, we did see 2 to 3% of gains on Friday. And if you look at the previous week, it has been 3% gains for the US crude, 4.8% up for the Brent crude prices also. So after the kind of decline that we saw in the month of October and November, December clearly has started on a positive note here. And then, of course, you have the 1.2 million barrels per day of a cut coming from OPEC and allies. That has been a supportive number. The US weekly inventories declined by 7.3 million barrels per day. That was supportive of the price. And then the US rig count was down 10 to 877, and that has come in after a very, very long time, because in last many months you only have seen increase in US rigs drilling numbers. So there are three factors really which have been supportive, and that is the impact that you have seen in crude. Most hedge funds and banks and brokerages would tell you that the lower side or the bottom for the crude oil prices is done. From here on, it is consolidation and a gradual gain up to mid-60s, and 70 is what the markets are looking at for the first half of 2019 at least. For the other metal space, it hasn't been so good really, because when you look at the US jobs data, that came in less than the street expectation. If you look at the Chinese factory orders, those rose in November at the slowest pace since October 2016 as well. So when it comes to the economic data, that still is on the weaker side. You have seen a bit of decline in US dollar, but the metals as a sector still hasn't been able to see much buying in Asia right now.
Manisha, thanks a lot for those commodity cues.